They left behind a shore, as if someone had erased the ordinary. Broken crates, half buried in sand. A child's wooden toy, chewed by gulls. And in the tall grass beyond the village, small white shapes that were only bones. The captain's log, where it exists, speaks in the brittle language of navigation. Leagues, provisions, weather. But the map of what happened on land is drawn in smell and sound. The sour of spoiled grain, the thin, rasping breath of a feverish child, the metallic clink of a spoon against tin as someone counted what could be spared. Some accounts call it negligence, others, malice cloaked in bureaucracy. Where evidence thins, historians speak in cautious verbs. May have, appears, was reported. And where memory fills the gaps, rumor has stitched together images that refuse to go away. An island dotted with graves, mothers with empty arms, sailors who wrote home about an abandonment we could not blame only on weather. If you want to walk with me through this winter of the 16th century, to listen as closely as the archive allows, like and subscribe, and stand with me in the uneasy work of bearing witness. Shorefall and promise, arrival, trade, and the first misreadings. The video places us at the moment of landing, when the air tasted of pitch and possibility, and the world still believed in easy maps. We will move from the ship's gangplank to the village green, following the slow choreography of contact. Interpreters stumbling through pigeons, traders laying out beads and cloth, fathers watching with folded arms as strangers measured their children with the curious eye of commerce. Sensory detail will be close and exact. The salt on a sailor's beard, the sticky sweetness of palm sap, the hollow sound of a drum discouraged by empty hands, because the small domestic moments are where trust is made or lost. This chapter will not pass simple moral judgment at once. It will instead explore how ambitions and misunderstandings accumulate. A captain may write of friendly barter, while a local elder remembers a storehouse emptied too quickly. A missionary's diary might record kindness, while a fisherwoman remembers a cache of dried fish taken for the voyage. We will attend to the documents that exist, dispatches clipped in distant ports, occasional missionary letters, and to the gaps that rumor and oral memory attempt to fill. The reader will begin to sense how an otherwise ordinary commercial landing can be the ground where scarcity later takes root. A broken promise, a miscounted ledger, a decision made in the cramped geometry of a ship's hold that will echo in the small bodies of children. The ledger of hunger, supply, mismanagement, and the arithmetic of survival. Here we go deeper into the mechanics of scarcity, tracing how provisions were tallied and how human beings were turned, in practice, into units on a page. We will reconstruct the bookkeeping that mattered, biscuits counted in the morning, barrels of water rationed against distance, the sudden loss of grain to rot or theft, and the frantic efforts to replace it. This is also the chapter of human economies, favors traded for bread, the quiet coercion of a man who says, "I will keep watch if you give me your portion," the furtive sharing of a child's crust between siblings. Sensory description will remind us that hunger is not abstract. It is the taste of iron in the mouth, the hollow ache under ribs, the way a mouth learns to be polite to food that is no longer nourishing. We will examine testimony, both official and informal, a lieutenant's report documenting supply shortfalls, a missionary's note about growing numbers of wasted children, and oral recollections preserved in local memory that speak of a day when the sea yielded no fish. Where the archival record is silent about intent, the narrative will not leap to moral certainty. Instead, it will show how negligence, arrogance, and ecological chance can braid together into catastrophe. The ledger of hunger is both literal and moral. It lists what was available and what was accounted for in conscience. And it is within that uneasy arithmetic that decisions were made that would mark lives forever. The silent children and the quiet bones. Personal tragedies and the names left out. This chapter rests in the small, unbearable details of loss. We will try to imagine, as closely as any historian can, the day-to-day of households transformed into waiting rooms for death. Mothers knitting tiny caps for children whose skin hangs slack as parchment. The sound of a single cough that will not be soothed. The furtive way neighbors pull blankets over a body to spare the living the sight. Names will matter here. Where specific identities survive in parish rolls or sailors' lists, they will be given. And where they do not, the narrative will speak for the human particularity that statistics erase. Sensory language will be intimate and tender. The smell of an oil lamp guttering in a hut where someone sits to shovel thin gruel into the mouths of infants. The soft rasp of sandals as a woman goes to bury what remains. The faint, persistent taste of salt in every tongue so that the sea becomes a memory both of plenty and of betrayal. This chapter will not dramatize suffering for shock. It will insist on the dignity of naming pain and doing justice to the small acts of care performed under desperate conditions. A nurse's hand that lingers too long on a fevered brow. A neighbor's secret ration slipped into a child's palm. In the absence of full records, where oral histories disagree or where early chronicles smooth the horror into moral lesson, we will mark uncertainty and lean into the sensory, the human, the mournful measure of what was lost. Rumor, report, and the circulation of blame. How news crossed the sea. From the island's small tragedies, the story moves outward to courts, ports, and capital letters. This chapter will track how accounts traveled, by merchant ship, by missionary courier, by the occasional returning sailor who might have held his tongue or told everything. We will look at the competing narratives that developed, an imperial logbook that frames the episode as misfortune, a missionary report that seeks compassion from distant patrons, local oral traditions that remember abandonment and injustice. The sensory palette here shifts from the taste of gruel to the clack of quill on parchment, the rustle of a dispatch being sealed, the smoky air of a tavern where a returning sailor drinks to forget what he saw. We will interrogate the motives that shaped which version gained currency, bureaucratic self-preservation, the rhetorical needs of mercantile investors, the missionaries' plea for funds. This chapter also examines legal and moral frameworks in play, maritime law, the norms of provisioning for voyages, and the ways colonial hierarchies rendered certain lives expendable in the ledger of profit. Where historians dispute causality, the account will present the different readings and the evidence that supports each, leaving the reader able to weigh how rumor and record braided together to decide who was culpable and who was merely unfortunate. Islands of memory, legacy, archaeology, and the responsibility to remember. The final chapter widens to consider how such an episode endures in memory and what it asks of us now. We will move between the quiet of archaeological trenches where children's bones might rest, the brittle ink of parish registries, and the living memory of communities who tell stories at hearths. Themes will include restitution and silence, how descendants have sought acknowledgement, or how nations have preferred to forget uncomfortable chapters of their past. How scholars attempt to balance empathy with evidentiary caution, and how the island itself, if it still bears ruins, quietly resists the tidy telling of history. Sensory detail will return in elegiac tones, the wind over a salt flat where a playground might once have been, the small clatter of a museum case holding a single toy found in a dig, the hush of a classroom where children learn a complicated past. We will close with reflection, the moral challenge of narrating suffering without turning it into spectacle, the duty to name where we can, and to say we do not know where we cannot, and the broader question of how voyages of profit and empire left human costs that are not easily accounted for. The chapter will end on an unsettled note, asking whether remembrance can ever be enough and what it means to share culpability across centuries. They left the shore with charts and promises. The island kept the rest, a ledger written in small bones and the hollowed faces of children who never learned the names of passing ships. What happened there resists tidy moral verdicts. Negligence and greed, weather and miscalculation, rumor and the slow violence of colonial economies all braided together until the human cost became plain. Remember them by the details we can hold close, the taste of salt on a deserted toy, the rasp of a fevered breath under a thin blanket, the clink of a captain's pen signing away obligation, and by the truths we must be willing to say we do not yet know. If this telling moved you to carry that discomfort rather than turn it into spectacle, like, subscribe, and share so these small, hard histories remain remembered and reckoned with care.